All right, everyone, welcome back to Master of the Universe podcast. Joey Cage here with the one and only
Chris Karam.
How's it going, man? How you doing tonight, dude? So this is number 3 on the Insidious franchise, dude. There's only 4, so this is probably going to be the first franchise that we do in full. So, overall thoughts, dude. Released in 2015, starring most of all the people from the original, two. We got Leigh Whannell playing Specs, and Angus Sampson, Tucker, Lin Shaye as Elise, and we just got 2 new people. We have Stefanie Scott as Quinn, and then Dermot Mulroney. Is that how you say his name? As her dad, and I know him from Copycat. So that's all I really know him from. All the other folks, I mean, they're known for this franchise for me. But I mean, going into this one, dude, what were you expecting? How did you feel? How's the weekend?
I genuinely didn't know what to expect. Because, like I said, Insidious, other than that probable time years and years ago that I saw it at someone's house or apartment or whatever, I'm really not familiar with the franchise. So I didn't know what to expect going into it. I didn't want to read about it and skew my expectations. I just wanted to organically turn it on, see what happens, follow from there. But it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I'm probably gonna give it 8.5 out of 10. I'm gonna say that. And forgive me if I'm not supposed to give my rating right off the bat, but
no, you're
I'm
good. You're
cool.
good.
I'm good,
Speaking of rating, we didn't rate Freddy. What do you give Freddy? So for those of people who left on the cliffhanger.
Nightmare 6. Freddy's Dead. I'm probably gonna give that one a 6.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I was gonna say like a 5.5 or 5, but yeah, 6 sounds about right. It's about right. So back to Insidious 3. So yeah, I guess you said an 8 out of 10 or 8.5 out of 10.
8.5. I mean, if we're talking strictly the genre of paranormal,
yes,
this
exactly.
is what I mean, this is what a paranormal film should be. You get introduced to the characters. You slowly start to see how they interact with each other. There's a gradual introduction of paranormal, supernatural elements, and then it takes off from there. That's what a paranormal movie's supposed to be.
Yeah, I won't rate this on the same scale I give, Casino or Godfather. So, yeah, of course, yeah, for the horror movies, yeah, it's like an 8.5 for me as well, since we're doing that now, man. But when I saw this one, because I really didn't like part 2 as much as I liked part 1, and again, spoiler 2, it's like I like this one probably, more than part 1. It kind of goes back and forth because they're to me they're like very similar films, but like the scares in this one are kind of continuous. The other ones are kind of like silent scares, and it's just Renee.
Yeah.
I think it's a little more scary that it's just Quinn by herself dealing with this like the man who can't breathe gimmick. And I think that's a lot more scary. Like maybe if Quinn was in the first one and she was in that house with those demons, it probably would have been scarier. But as an older lady, not older, but like in her 30s woman dealing with those ghosts, it's not as scary as like this young, teen dealing with it by herself. But the film starts off with Quinn going to it's a prequel, so it's after the events from part 2 when Josh is a kid. And then it's before, Dalton has his, experience. And she goes to speak to Elise about trying to contact her mother. And when they kind of sit down and, she's kind of like doesn't really want to do it at first because she's kind of afraid with her powers. And there's a reason why she has to stop. Did that build a lot of suspense for you when they're there, like just sitting in her living room?
Oh, it did. It did. And here's the thing is, Elise is in the movie. She's going to come back into this at some point down the road. Otherwise, why even have her in there at all? But the thing is now you're thinking, like you said, suspense. What is going to drive her return?
Yeah. I think that's what makes this movie better than, obviously the first one and this one. I guess that's also, too, why I like this one better than part 1 a little bit is because Elise is in this film a lot more than she is in part 1. Because in part 1, she's there like the last 3/4 of the movie. Very little. And yeah, thank you. And so like she's got that like how many like horror movie franchises can like depend on a damn if not 70 damn near close year old woman being the star of the show Like that tells you that's some good shit going on. You know what I mean? Like when you're able to keep people interested and you're an older woman like that. Um,
Yeah.
it's very, very, very cool. So yeah, she's there with Quinn, and then she turns off like the lamp, and she's because Quinn wants to meet her mom, who's died of cancer, and like she's like, oh, I've tried. Like it's kind of like creepy, but you don't understand it at first. But she's telling Elise like, oh, I've tried to contact her, and I'll notice things move, or I'll hear things, or whatever. And then when Elise tries to like I would like to speak to Lily Brenner, I think it's her mom's name, and like she can just feel like there's something evil following. We don't know if it's just Quinn or following Elise again, but there's something evil there. She's like, I love what she tells her. She's like, like next time, like don't try to contact the dead by yourself. And she's like, because when you call out to them, all of them can hear you. And I was like, oh shit, because you know how they say like basically the Ouija board kind of rule is like don't play it by yourself and shit.
Fuck. Don't play it at all. But I mean, the thing is, like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm always going to go back, and I'm going to say this for the listening audience. Like, I'm always going to go back and just say this. Like, I've talked to so many people and listened to so many people, like on Catholic radio and stuff. Like, you don't want to get involved in that. I mean, you're inviting that demonic, evil world into your world when you do that. Like, I personally know people. Who got into that when they were like a newly married couple in their early 20s, and they got into crystal gazing, Ouija boards, and psychics, and all that bullshit. Come home, and they've got fucking lamps flying across the room.
Wow, you've known people that shit's happened to them?
Yes.
Tell me some stories about that.
Okay, without giving names, but I was in a youth group in 8th grade, I think it was, and it was this cool younger couple. I mean, I say younger, that meaning like they were 40 and had teenagers.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, they were cool. Like the dad was like, he was like a real rock music guy, like classic rock. I mean, he listened to modern rock of that time, and he listened to classic rock too. And he said, "Oh yeah, I've seen Rush 3 times. I've been to see Van Halen twice." He was one of those types. But he was like a church youth group leader, real cool guy. But when he and his wife first got together and first got married and shit, like they'd go home to where they lived, and because they had gotten so involved in it's divination, psychics, crystal gazing, Ouija boards, all that shit, and they eventually got to the point where their fucking place was haunted and they had to get it exorcised.
Wow, that's crazy, dude. That's pretty fucked up shit. But Quinn, we get to meet Quinn's brother. I think his name's Alex. Then her dad, and like I said, we know their mom's gone, so it's just them. And she's kind of getting ready for this audition to be able to go off to college and all this and that. So she goes to the audition in this fucking theater, like if they're on Broadway, it's like ridiculously big and nice. And we see James Wan as like the theater director there.
Mm-hmm.
And she's there giving her like line readings, and then she looks up at the second floor, and you see like this old man. I remember seeing this for the first time, being like, "Oh shit!" Because if you look away for like 2 or 3 seconds, if you're at the movies or whatever, you're gonna miss something. And like these movies are kind of like, they're very subtle. They're just kind of like you have to be paying attention or you won't see it. And I hate people that say, "Oh, this isn't scary." I'm like, well, if you're not looking at it and you're looking around and you're checking your phone and you're tying your it's not going to be scary for you because you're not looking at the movie, you're not taking it all in, you're just kind of like ignoring it, which is why you're not getting the full experience. But you see that now, you're like kind of like the premonitions and the fucking bullshit's getting started. And her and her friend are bullshitting on the outside afterwards because she's like, "Oh, I blew my line," because it kind of like made her go brain dead for a second after seeing that, which I'm pretty sure everyone would if you see like an old silhouette waving at you that's all like looking decrepit and shit. And she is outside the theater and she stops again in the middle of the street because she sees like this person, like really fucking skinny, like they look like they're damn near 130 pounds. And Chris hit his microphone, and
pale,
and pale, and she gets hit by a car. And I remember seeing this in the theaters, like getting like jump scared because I mean I kind of was saying like don't stand in the middle of the street, moron, you know. But then you see like the ghost and you kind of like freeze the way she does too, and then she gets smacked and you're like holy shit, you know, like it's because it scares you and um, that's when like this movie's a little bit different than the other ones because it has like the further elements when they go into like the the other world. Um, but I guess because of her near death experience, it kind of like forced her to go there. And when she's there, getting worked on with the doctors, where you kind of like, whoa, shit! Like, what were you thinking when all this was going on?
Oh, I mean that actually startled me. So let me just tell you. So I didn't see it, and it wasn't because of like having my phone or doing something or anything. I was sitting there watching because this movie's very engaging from the jump. So like you can't help but pay attention to it. But I missed the part where the old man's
because it's quick. It's like a second. Yeah. If you're not, I mean, if you blink, you know, or you're eating, you look down, you're gonna miss it. Like, I mean, you will miss it. I understand that, but I'm saying like, yeah, you have to be really focused.
yeah, you do on this one you do because like they're subtle and it's quick. But the one, of course, you can't help but see that when it's in the street and then she gets hit by the car. That one is just so blatant, and it's like what that started. Like I actually jumped a little bit in my heart when I saw the old man just standing in the street. Like that alone startled me.
Yeah.
Then she gets hit by the car.
Yeah, it makes you oh shit, you know, and they start working on her, and she's like in the further in like this pit of blackness. You know, of course, if you've seen the other ones, you kind of know what's going on. If not, you still think like she's in that near-death experience, right? And then she sees the man who that we find out is the man who can't breathe. And as soon as like she comes face to face with him, she fucking wakes up. So when you first saw like I guess like a close up of him, where you're like, oh shit, because you didn't see the first time he was waving or whatever, and did you like, you know, like oh is this what we're dealing with now? You know, because she's like half awake and she's telling her dad like the man in the street, you know, and like he's probably like what the fuck, you know.
And the whole time I'm seeing, every time I see him, I'm looking closely into his face as I can, even pausing it at points because I'm trying to see. I'm saying to myself, just referencing the first two, I'm like, is that supposed to be Parker Crane?
Yeah, exactly. I thought the same thing too when I was, you know, writing notes about the film. I was like, you know, Parker Crane looked like that before he wore that get-up, you know, because it added like 40 pounds to him when he wore the veil and shit. But another creepy part, this film is really good about building up shit, is when they're taking Quinn back to her apartment, which is like a really big apartment kind of gimmick place. And she's like on the first floor, and she's like sits there in the lobby with like an old black woman, and she's like, the man who can't breathe, you know, he lives in the vents. I heard him in your room while you were gone. And then Quinn's just kind of like, she knows this lady like has dementia and she's crazy probably, but like she's like also like connecting it with what she's seen, you know, what she's seen, and like all that was scary. But then when she goes like, he's up there right now in your room, standing in your room, waiting for you. And then I was like, holy shit, like that is some creepy fucking, you know, bullshit right there, dude.
That's about right.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Did you freak out when she was talking, or did you start getting the chills when all that shit was going on?
Oh yeah, I mean that kind of talking to someone like that and telling someone something like that. I mean, even though you're sitting here, you're watching it, you know it's a movie, you know it's fiction, you don't even know if she's going to experience that when she goes back in the room, but it's still getting in your head.
Yeah. And her first night back at her house, she starts. Nothing major happens other than like just those subtle, crazy things that you have to be watching for. Like I know, like she has like a bell that her dad gives her, so whenever like you know she needs something, she can just ring it, and like she hears the bell, but she doesn't ring it, and she's kind of like looking around, like oh it wasn't me, I guess, you know. And then her dad comes in like, did you ring? She's like, no, you know, but so it makes her like second guess herself, like I heard it too, but like I didn't do it, and you know he came in there just to like confirm it, and then like she's going to sleep, and then like you see like that silhouette of the man who can't breathe by her window, and like I was like, man, this movie's gonna be fucked up, like it's just
and that type of scene with the dynamic at play like that where here's your bell, sweetie, in case you need me to get you anything. And he hears it, he goes to the room, and she denies it. Yeah. But it's like, you're starting to think to myself, oh, fuck, is this going to create some awkward boy who cried wolf situation?
And then we get a cut to Lin Shaye having a nightmare, and she just wakes up and writes in her little book. And I've always thought about doing this myself, like whenever you have dreams, to like jot down what they are or nightmares, because you forget, or at least I forget really quick. And she does, and she writes down the name, Quinn Brenner, because she obviously has a scene. She's clairvoyant and all that shit, and she writes that. Shit down that'll come into play later, and she tells her like that she had saw like the man who can't breathe in her dream, so that's why she fucking went to help her later on in the film. But we go back to Quinn, and she's in her bed reading A Clockwork Orange, which is like a crazy film too, we might do in the future. And she like knocks on her door, because we meet, like I said, the brother. Earlier in the film, we met the brother, the dad, and the neighbor, and like the neighbor's like not even like in the film. It's just like it's just like he's in the film just so we can have this scene when she knocks on it, ta 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 ta, and then he goes ta ta, and then she's all like starts texting him like, hey, so I could stop traffic, huh? Like flirting and all that, and. She's like, did I wake you? And he's like, I'm at my grandma's. And she's like, oh shit, like if he's not in there, who
the fuck is?
Yeah, who's knocking? And then she knocks again, and then it doesn't knock now. It's like the ghost is fucking with her. It's like, wow, dude, like that's like the scariest, bullshit. And then she goes to like roll over to go to bed, and then like something from above her grabs her ass, shit, not her ass, but grabs her. And then the cracking on the ceiling. The dad wakes up and goes and checks, and there's like, cracks on top of the floor above her. So I mean, I'm assuming something was up there, or maybe that's where that guy's from or something. But
right,
yeah, because they keep on going to that room. It even like kind of connects later on in the film. But up to this point, dude, what's going on in your head, dude?
Up to this point, I'm just like, it's the unyielding intensity of this movie. So, like, part one is definitely going to be my favorite of the three. I mean, I like all of them, but part one's my favorite. But this one here, it's like the intensity never stops, because so much of it just happens in, like, limited, confined spaces, and it's a teenage girl by herself encountering this and everything. And it's like a sweet, innocent motive at first where, she lost her mother, who she was close to, and she's hoping and thinking she could reach out to her and, died of cancer, all this stuff, and hoping it's her she's experienced all this shit with, and then it's something very sinister that's going to start fucking with her. It's just, it's so dark, and there's so many startle scenes, like the movie doesn't let up on the viewer, let's put it that way.
Yes, exactly. And for those of you that are trying to see where we're kind of watching along from, it's about minute 34 on Crackle. It's free on Crackle there right now if you want to check it out. But there's this, we go to a scene with Elise, and she's trying to get a hold, I believe, of Lily Brenner.
Oh, Lord.
And this is like one of those scenes that are like just great. She's like, I'm trying to get a hold of Lily Brenner. And she's like, keeps calling out to her, Lily, can you hear me? Your daughter's in danger and all this. And then you can see from like of course, not from like Lin Shaye's view or Elise's view, but you can see, from a side view when the camera's panning around, the man who can't breathe just kind of like walking in her house, and you're just like, and then like, I love how like Elise's character doesn't like look right away and reacts to it. She just opens her eyes and like senses it, but she's like kind of afraid to look. And she kind of like slowly tilts her head like, oh shit. And then we see like those tar footprints, in her house. leading to her basement, which y'all guys can remember from part 2, where she keeps all her stuff. So there's like another retcon, I guess you could say.
The
And
reading room.
yeah, the reading room, and she's like, the light doesn't work and all that bullshit. And she's like, sees the footsteps go all the way down there, and she's like talking, to the spirit. And you see the footprints go against the wall up in the ceiling and like hanging upside down. We finally see him like a bat almost, and like, screaming. And she runs out of there like, almost like she's not strong enough to like take on this demon, or like she's too scared to. Of course, they explain it's because she's afraid of the old woman that she saw, from the original film, Parker Crane. And that whole scene was really done well, I thought. Kind of built the suspense. And then we see Quinn doing like the FaceTime gimmick on her Apple laptop with her buddy, who's got like a weird haircut and red hair and all kinds of shit. And they're talking, and she's like, "Oh, is that your brother?" And then she's like, "What? Like right next to you? Is that your brother?" And then the laptop freezes. And I was like, "Oh shit!" Like that's like perfect, because that's like exactly what would happen. You know what I mean? And then like during the fucking day, like I think that's the scariest thing that a movie can do. Like, of course you want the nighttime scenes, but like when shit starts fucking with you during the day, when like there's light out, then you've got some serious fucking problems.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so we just see that silhouette in the fucking outline of the window, and the fucking thing goes underneath her bed and throws her off the bed. And then like, just when you think you can't get scared enough because you're seeing that, it's not like just a jump scare. Like he's standing there and he's walking towards her. Like he goes and walks from one side of the room to the other and closes the door, so it's like completely dark. And this comes above her and starts screaming like, And that's when they come and give her like a neck brace, basically just like breaking down her spirit. You know what I mean? So she's too weak to like fight back. And like one of the creepier scenes, like I said, is like she sees all this shit going on. She's asleep on the couch because she's afraid to sleep in her bed, and then she wakes up in a fucking wheelchair in the middle of the hallway.
Yep.
And then that's when that old man starts pushing her down the hallway. Which I'm like, can you imagine like being immobile? So because your legs are broken, your neck's fucked up, you can't see who's pushing you, from behind, taking you to the elevator all the way to like another place in the fucking building. But the dad eventually is able to find her and the second floor. And did you get jump scared when like the dad's able to find her on the second store I can't say second story, but the next floor above room.
Yeah.
And she's on the floor, and she's like hanging out the fucking window. That's what she's hanging out there. And she pulls her up. He's like, Quinn, what's going on? No. He finds her on the floor, and she's like, oh, whatever the fuck. And he looks down and is like, there's nothing down there. And then she looks down, and that's when that fucking thing tries to pull her down. It's just like insane. Like they just keep building and building up this fucking suspense, and this demon's like really trying to like, not just like the other films are like trying to take over the body. This one, like, it wants to bring her to the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that scene you're talking about where she's in the floor above, isn't that where like he's pulling her back into the window by the cast, and then he looks down and sees that guy splat on the ground, and then she goes and looks, and he's right up in her face.
Well, I don't think he even sees anybody there, but yeah, he might see. Yeah, I guess it's like, what the fuck, and yeah, like it pulls her down, and then I guess I know because earlier in the film, Quinn tells him about like, oh, I went to go see the psychic and this and that, and he's like, those people, they just try and like put stuff in your head or whatever, and so he goes to go see Elise and talk to her about it, like, my daughter needs your help, and she tells him like, there's a reason why I stopped doing this and all that, and but she decides to help her anyway because like she's having these serious problems, and then she goes and tries to find the guy, what's it called, the guy who can't breathe, but then she runs into the veil head demon, and she's like, nah, I can't fuck with this. And so the brother Alex, he finally makes another appearance, kind of like Callie is very, here and there in the film, and he's like, why don't we get these guys? And that's how we meet. That's how Elise also meets Specs and Tucker. Like these guys, they're like kind of doing this paranormal kind of gimmick. And if you notice, dude, Tucker has a Masters of the Universe fucking.
I did notice that, and I wrote that in my fucking notes.
Yeah, I was like, son of a bitch, and then Casper for Specs and shit. Well, that's Leigh Whannell wearing the Casper jacket. If you guys are looking at Specs and Tucker, he's a guy that's he's a writer for a lot of shit. Like we've talked about in the other podcast. He did the first two Saw films, maybe the third one, not too sure. And then of course he does a lot of writing for James Wan. We got Carl doing a kind of cameo here and talks to Elise from part 2. So they're kind of like throwing everyone in there and bullshitting. And Elise is, she knows she needs to help her, but she's kind of afraid. Of course, they put Specs and Tucker. They put a camera on Quinn's forehead to kind of see what's going on and all this and that. And they're like, the camera moved and it's in the closet. The fucking demons trying to kill. Like it was kind of a fucked up part. Like she's like walking with her legs broken. And then she ends up kicking the fuck out of her like bedpost and till the cast fall off. I was like, oh my god, you can feel that, can't you?
Oh god, yeah. I mean, like, I mean, when your leg is in that kind of condition, yeah, I mean, everything hurts that touches it. So then she's kicking a bed, like chipping it down to like you're chopping a tree with an axe. I mean, that's nuts. But everyone from the prior films, like you were saying earlier, makes a cameo, makes a reappearance, except the Lambert family. You don't see any of them. They don't get mentioned. They don't get referenced. But why would they? It's a prequel. But now I'm at the part here where, see, my watching's a little delayed from yours. I'm in where he went up to the next floor up apartment and he sees the black footprints and the.
Oh, you're way behind, Daddy. No, we have to skip around. We ain't watched the whole. We ain't doing a commentary to the whole film, but. Elise finally decides to come back here, and it's about hour and 16 minutes in, because she decides to come back and help Quinn out, because rightfully so, because Specs and Tucker didn't really do much but like monitor the situation, and the ghost doesn't give a fuck. So she goes into the further, and she's got the lamp like all the other films do, like a little lamp to guide them into the further, and she sees her husband who committed suicide, which she talks about in the film, and kind of like plays on our emotions. And she's like, I had so much to say, I had so many questions and everything. And Carl, like I said, who was speaking to her earlier in the film, tells her like, you're alive, you're stronger than her, because as she's going into the room to help Quinn, it's pretty fucking hilarious. But the black veil lady or woman comes into attack Elise and like starts choking her the way she would, but I guess Elise is like feeling powerful at this time and like breaks the chokehold and throws the black veil lady against the wall, like takes one of those serious Kurt Hennig bumps, dude, like ridiculous, is fucking hilarious, and goes up to her husband and is like, hey, Jack, I missed you and all this and that, and and he's all like, well, come and join me, and gives her like a knife, but you have to do it yourself, and she's like, my Jack would never ask me to do that, and then slices his ass and shit.
And I was saying to myself, having background with the Freddy movies, I was like, I bet this dude is going to turn out not to really be him.
Oh, you felt it right away, huh?
You know what it is I've been trained to have that suspicion with these kind of movies.
Yeah, you have to. And she slices. It's kind of like a crazy scene because she like slices him against. I thought it was his neck, but he's covering his eyes or whatever. And then like he walks into the darkness and he comes back laughing, like ah. And he.
Can I point out?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
Can I
go
point
ahead.
out too? It's funny you said you were mentioning leading into that scene where she sees her quote unquote ex-husband, and you said someone took a Hennig bump, and it's funny because the deceased ex-husband looks like Kurt Hennig's dad.
Axel Hennig. Larry the Axe Hennig, yeah, exactly. He does look like him, dude. So Quinn ends up coming out and like because we see like a little flash of her, like everyone that I guess this demon does, like turns them into slaves, or they have no eyes and no hands, and they're just like a dog crawling almost, and he like stomps and brings her out, and but at least helps her get like with I guess with the power of love. That's the power of love, with everyone holding on to her, gives her like the strength to like want to come back to the real world, and they start escaping together, and Elise, that's part of it, because I know Elise they find like each other's bodies back, but before Quinn can fully get like into her body, that's when that fucking the man who can't breathe touches her and like keeps her from going there, and it's kind of like fucked up when you see that demon. Like I think this demon like is so fucking badass as far as horror wise, just because we don't know anything about him. Like we learned about Parker Crane, and it kind of like fucked it up for me. Towards the end, like what makes the demon so like devious and scary to me is like I said, Parker Crane. We learned too much about him, that his mama was his fucking boss, and he was a guy that was confused. But like this whole man who can't breathe, it's like we don't know anything about him other than he's freaking evil. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what makes it like really good. And then like the whole the tar footprints that he leaves and everything. It's like really fucking disturbing.
Yeah, you never find out too much about him, and all you know is he's menacing, and that's a comparable character to that would be homeboy in the first one that looks like Peter Steele, fucking Dracula looking motherfucker. That he's pacing the fucking
Dracula looking motherfucker. Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah, that dude. The dude that comes into the room.
And he comes in the room and goes after Renee, but you never, ever, ever find out a name, who he is, what his motive is, etc. I think he's just meant to be a generic demonic spirit that gets invited into their world by Dalton wandering around.
Yeah, and we don't. And then like the same thing with the red faced demon. We don't know who he is. It's like really awesome. But yeah, at least kind of like helps her find her way back, but she doesn't fully help her. Like she doesn't, like Quinn doesn't go herself all the way back, and that's when she shows up and tells everyone like like the dad's all like, is she dying? He's like like hold on to her, like everyone like give her like strength, and then Quinn's mom finally shows up in the further, and like gives her like strength, and that's when she pulls off the breathing tube or the breathing mask for the man who can't breathe, and you see his face, and he kind of like just gives up and dies and shit, and that's when we see the ending, and she's like, what happened, and she tells her like, oh, someone came to help you, and this and that, and it was your mom, and just a good old wholesome ending.
I took a note on that ending, by the way. I mean, it's cool that the mom came back, helped out, and communicated to them through Elise, but I feel like it would have been more impactful if you actually hear the voice of that spirit of the deceased.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because I was like, she don't really say anything, right? I was like, I don't remember her saying anything. You kind of feel like left without that full fulfillment. You know what I mean? Just because you see her there, like, I don't know.
Because if she's standing there and you see her there and everything, why not have her talk?
Yeah, do that whole Ghost, tell her I love her. What? Tell her ditto. Something.
Mm-hmm.
Get her going. But one of the better endings, I think, because can you imagine losing somebody and then them helping you, and like a great story, scary story, a demon you don't know anything about. That seems like the one and off kind of film. Um, it's like I would hope um, that they would. I don't think they would. I think they would go back to Dalton if they ever do like a sequel to what as far as the kids versions, um, like Quinn and Dalton or Foster when they're older, because that'd be really cool to see a film when someone's like they're 10 and then all of a sudden you see them when they're like 17 or 18. Continue that story. Um, it's pretty cool
I
shit.
would love that. I mean, if you now, I think the actor that plays Dalton, I think he today is 19 or 20.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you maybe
he's at least 10 years older than he was before. So I mean, if he was 10, yeah, he's probably like 20 years old now. Yeah, of course, But yeah, I don't even know how old he was in the first film, but he's probably like 10 years old or so.
And by that point, I mean, if you wait 5 more years for him to be an adult, and let's say the he's getting married, he got out of college, whatever. But I think Patrick Wilson, by that point, he's got bigger fish to fry, so he probably wouldn't be in that movie.
Oh, all he needs to do is be in a cameo, just like, hey, you're okay, son, just something simple, a little wink and a nod, like Chris likes to say. So towards the end, we see how Specs and Tucker and Elise kind of start their little shindig or whatever you want to call it, the spectral sightings. And she's like, you guys, we should go into business together, because like they all have their like strengths, but together they make like the total package, like you, me, and Mark, dude. So you gave this one an 8.5 out of 10. But yeah, I think I would give it an 8.5 out of 10, dude. This is the last one before the last one, so we just have one more left in this motherfucker. Insidious, The Last Key.
Yep.
Are you excited for it, dude? So we can finally finish this franchise?
I am, and I didn't even know such a movie existed until I was Googling the other day.
So, what do you think is this one's going to be about, dude? The next one.
It's as far as I understand, it's her going back to her beginnings. It's going back to her home. I want to say it's in New Mexico, but don't quote me on that. I'm just going by the visual of it.
Oh.
And she's got to discover some kind of something to solve some kind of issues in her own life based on her past and based on her upbringing and everything. So I am very curious about that. But, then again, the skeptic in me is concerned because how sequels always go. They never have the same, or they seldom have the same energy as the original. But we'll see.
We'll see. Who knows? And then the very, very, very end, when Elise is going to bed and she's tucking her dog Warren good night, she sees like the sweater of her husband who's passed away on the bed, and the dog gets up out of his little bed and it starts barking at it's like darkness in the hallway, and then she's like looking, and then right behind her is that red-faced demon, dude, from part 1 and was it part 2 they talked? Yeah, and part 2, because part 2 is that girl that was in a wheelchair, but it wasn't this girl in a wheelchair that we were talking to. So I guess they had the idea, but they changed it. I don't know. But even in this one, like, I was totally expecting the red-faced demon to come out in part 4, which he doesn't. So spoiler alert, Chris. Sorry about that. But either way, they always like leave you with good twist at the end, and then they kind of like boo it. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed Insidious 3. Anything else to add, Christopher J?
No, just keep on listening because there will be more exciting horror and other kind of movie podcasts.
Just keep on keeping on, man. So, like I said, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Peace.